Shalom, shalom, peace and blessings. Now let's get straight to it. This is going to be part 2 of the Hebrews chapter 7 lesson that we're doing here. And the title of this one is going to be, what is the order of Melchizedek? Now, part 1 was, who was Melchizedek? And we began to read into the chapter, but we fell short on time. So now in part 2, let's more talk about what the order of Melchizedek is. All right. And, I could just answer that now. The order of Melchizedek is the spiritual priesthood that Yahawashi will rule the earth, under forever. All right. Yahawashi, excuse me. Yahawashi will be the high priest here on earth, when he comes back, and all men will be kings and priests under his priesthood as well. All men of Israel, that is. And every priesthood has to have an order. And this is the priesthood that Yahawashi is under. What would be a priest without any order that he preaches under, right? So, this priesthood, the order of Melchizedek, is not like the priesthood of Moses or his brother Aaron, what we call the order of Aaron. And the children of Israel were under this order of Aaron for a long time. All right, that was a fleshly covenant. That was a fleshly priesthood with fleshly or carnal commandments. And the order of Melchizedek is a spiritual priesthood with spiritual ordinances, spiritual commandments, essentially. But let's start from the top. Enough of the talk. Let's start from the top here, Hebrews chapter 7. And then, how we like to do it. We're going to start from the top again and discuss a few of the points that we talked about last time, and we're going to go straight into it.
It's the book of Hebrews, chapter 7 and verse 1. For this Melchizedek, king of Salem, prince of the Most High God, who met Abraham returning from the slaughter of the kings and blessed him.
Read through verse 3 out.
Verse 2. To whom also Abraham gave a 10th part of all, first being by interpretation, king of righteousness, and after also king of Salem, which is king of peace, without fear, without mother, without descent, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but made like unto the Son of the Most High, abideth a priest continually.
Okay, so last time we talked about how, at least in my perspective of what I see from the scriptures based on the precepts that we have available to us, and keep in mind, we are, like Paul said, we are looking through a glass veiled darkly. All right, but from what I can gather here, this cannot be Yahawashi. Melchizedek cannot be Yahawashi. I want to touch on that again here briefly. Let's get Romans chapter 6 and verse 9.
This is the book of Romans, chapter 6 and verse 9. Knowing that Hamashiach, being raised from the dead, dieth no more. Death hath no more dominion over him.
So is Melchizedek still alive? Exactly who Abraham talked to? That means that he would literally have to be alive in that Yahawashi died twice. Let's go to verse 10.
Verse 10. For in that he died unto sin once, but in that he liveth unto the Most High.
Yeah, he lived until the Most High. Yahawashi only died once, not twice. According to a lot of brothers, more than twice. Some brothers say that Yahawashi was Adam and Isaac and Solomon, and that's really so off. Again, I don't even want to expand on that. It really doesn't make any sense, really, and it's kind of going into some different pagan doctrines. The Hindus have a practice that they believe in reincarnation. All right, they believe that every life just recycles, and that kind of goes into necromancy and different things of that nature, which is not in our laws. All right, now let's get Philippians chapter 2, and then let's start at, I got verse 5. Let's get verse 5.
It's the book of Philippians, chapter 2 and verse 5. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Hamashiach Yahawashi,
Keep going.
who, being in the form of the Most High, thought it not robbery to be equal with the Most High.
Okay, now I want to expand on this for a second because I don't want to read this and just keep going, even though this is not what this lesson is about per se, but this is not saying that Yahawashi is the Most High. And, it's kind of weird because I think that brothers kind of struggle with, at least in my view, they struggle with what equal really means. Like, and of course, we know the so-called Christians and things, they think that the Most High and his son, they're the exact same. They're the exact same being, and that's impossible. There's no two things in existence that are literally the same thing. When twins come out, even identical twins, they're different. You can't be the same thing at the same time. Only what something is can equal what that thing is, if that makes sense. Now, to be more specific about Yahawashi and the Most High, this is not saying that Yahawashi was equal to the Most High. All right. It's essentially saying that, well, you know what? Yahawashi addressed this. John 5 and 18. Yahawashi already addressed this. All right, let's get John chapter 5 and verse 18.
It's the book of John, chapter 5 and verse 18. And it reads, therefore the Jews sought the more to kill him, because he not only had broken the Sabbath, but said also that the Most High was his father, making himself equal with the Most High.
Let's keep going to verse 19.
Verse 19, then answered Yahawashi and said unto them, verily, verily, I say unto you, the Son can do nothing of himself, but what he seeth the Father do. For what things soever he doeth, these also doeth the Son likewise.
So you see, Yahawashi already addressed this. He shut that down. He didn't say, yes, I am the Most High. Yes, I am equal with the Most High. No, he's saying that he's coming in the same mission. All right. And he's getting his power from the Most High. I can do nothing of myself. That's what he's saying. So the Most High's Son, or Yahawashi, is the express image of the Most High, like we read about in Hebrews chapter 1. All right. Meaning he's a representation of the Most High, but he is not the Most High. He's not equal to the Most High. The Most High created him. He can't be the Most High if he's a creation himself. You understand? Just like when you married to your spouse, you become one flesh. All right. You become equally yoked, but that doesn't mean that that man and that woman is literally the same flesh. All right. So, that carries on to Melchizedek as well. Like, you have to understand that Yahawashi literally cannot be Melchizedek if he talked to Abraham and he talked to a man, you understand, a king of Salem at that time. I'm not saying that he couldn't talk to Yahawashi at all in the spirit, but I'm saying in a fleshly form, that's just not possible. Okay, but let's go back to Philippians. I did just want to touch on that because that's a big doctrine in many sects of Christianity. Let's get verse 7 and back in Philippians chapter 2.
It's the book of Philippians, chapter 2 and verse 7. But made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men.
All right, it says Yahawashi made himself of no reputation. Now, is Paul skipping over when he was king of Salem? I mean, the precepts not lining up here with, Yahawashi being Melchizedek. I'm just saying, he took on a form of a servant, not the form of a king. and then died and came back as a servant, then gonna come back as a king again. It didn't go down like that. All right, it's not gonna go down like that. Okay, so I did want to touch on that quickly. Let me see, I had this Luke. Yeah, I'll get to this point. I got to pull it up, might as well get it. I don't want to take too long on this. Let's get Luke chapter 1 and verse 17.
This is the book of Luke, chapter 1 and verse 17. And it reads, and he shall go before him in the spirit and power of Elias.
So this is talking about John the Baptist. Okay, that some brothers say that John the Baptist was Elijah, the great prophet that we read about in the book of 2 Kings. Look, he's not literally him. Okay, he went in the power and the spirit of Elijah. John the Baptist did. Okay, a like kindred spirit, but not literally the same person, the same being, the same soul. That's how it is with Yahawashi. He came in the same, he's coming in the same order of the Melchizedek. All right, but not literally him. He wasn't literally in that fleshly body. And just to end it out here, let's get Wisdom of Solomon chapter 16. Zoom in here to verse 14.
This is the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 16 and verse 14. A man indeed killeth through his malice, and the spirit, when it is gone forth, returneth not, neither the soul received up cometh again.
Once you're dead, then the judgment, you don't come back. Okay, you're not living your 15th life and all of this other nonsense. Okay, because that judgment, which life would you be judged for? Which actions that you've done would you be judged for? And brothers say, well, if you were wicked before, you come back wicked. If you were righteous before, you come back righteous. Well, where that's at? Where's the precept for that? There's no proof of that. That's just winging it. Because when you're not telling the truth, you have to tell more lies to get yourself, to try to dig further in the hole. Well, you end up digging yourself further in the hole. All right. And the truth is just bare. All right. You don't need no further explanation. It's just that simple. Okay. Now, let's talk about the order of Melchizedek. We got most of the verses. We stopped around, I want to say, the 11th verse. I think I had Job pulled up too. What our time looking like? I got it. So let's see. Let's get verse. Let's get verse 10.
It's the book of Job, chapter 14 and verse 10. But man dieth and wasteth away. Yea, man giveth up the ghost, and where is he?
So when he died, where does he go? Where is he? Okay. Let's get verse 13.
Verse 13. Oh, that thou wouldest hide me in the grave, that thou wouldest keep me secret until thy wrath be past, that thou wouldest appoint me a set time and remember me.
So Job is going into some deep stuff right here. So he's saying when he dies, hide me in the grave and keep me secret until Yahawashi comes back and the wrath that he's going to bring on this society for all of this wickedness. Okay, he's saying he don't want to be a part of that until thy wrath be past. Okay, that thou wouldst appoint me a set time and remember me. So he wants to be a part of that first resurrection of the righteous. Okay. Yes, he is saying all of that right here in this verse. Let's get verse 14.
Verse 14. If a man die, shall he live again? All the days of my appointed time will I wait till my change come.
All the days of my appointed time will I wait. So if Job thought he was coming back, why is he waiting? He's waiting in the chamber of souls of the righteous, like Melchizedek is. Okay, until the resurrection. When you die, you don't come back as a dog, or you come back as a so-called white man, you know, a white a white chocolate covered doggone Israelite, whatever you want to call it. You know, you're not living double and triple lives. All right, so Yahawashi cannot be Melchizedek based on the scriptures. All right, but anyway, I did want to touch on that again because we didn't go all the way into it. We could get more, but that's enough. We got the point. So let's get back in Hebrews chapter 7. And now I want to talk about what the order of Melchizedek is. Understand? Because we only talked about who Melchizedek was. Now let's talk about what that means and what that means for us. So let's get Hebrews chapter 7 and verse 11.
It's the book of Hebrews, chapter 7 and verse 11. If therefore perfection were by the Levitical priesthood, for under it the people received the law, what further need was there that another priest should rise after the order of Melchizedek, and not be called after the order of Aaron?
So if the first covenant was perfect, why do we have need for the order of Melchizedek? All right, let's keep going. We're going to discuss it more, but let's keep going, Baba Kishah.
Verse 12, for the priesthood being changed, there is made of necessity a change also of the law.
A change of the law, not eradication of the law. And what we're going to find out, speaking of the law, what we're going to find out is that there's a difference between the covenant, the first covenant, the second covenant, and then the law. The law has always been in existence. Okay, the first covenant and the law in itself is not the same thing. So when you read about the order of Aaron no longer being in place, that doesn't mean the whole law went away with it. You understand? Because the law was already there. The order of Aaron, or the specific laws of the Levitical priesthood that Moses gave to the children of Israel, that was added on top of what was already there. Okay, and that's essentially what the order of Melchizedek is, but we're going to prove that. Let's keep going.
Verse 13, for he of whom these things are spoken pertaining to another tribe, of which no man gave attendance at the altar.
So that's a similitude between Melchizedek and Yahawashi. They both are not Levites. You understand that? That's why he used that similitude, at least one of the reasons why. Let's get verse 14, that we all know.
Verse 14, for it is evident that our Lord sprang out of Judah, of which tribe Moses spake nothing concerning priesthood.
I still get hype hearing this, years later. It's evident that Yahawashi sprang out of the tribe of Judah. Okay, and this is a tribe that Moses did not speak anything concerning priesthood, meaning the Levites were the only priests. All right, but we're about to talk more about that. Let's get 15 and actually read through 16.
Verse 15, and it is yet far more evident, for that after the similitude of Melchizedek there ariseth another priest, who is made not after the law of a carnal commandment, but after the power of an endless life. So
we have another priest that's going to arise after the similitude of Melchizedek. That's Yahawashi, high priest. Okay, he's made not after the law of a carnal commandment, but what is a carnal commandment? What is the carnal commandment? Okay, because we understand what the power of the endless life is, but what's a carnal commandment? What does that even mean? Let's look at the word carnal here. All right, we're looking this up in the Greek. This is Strong's G4559, sarkikos. All right. It says, the KJV translates this Strong G4559 the following manner: carnal 9 times, fleshly twice. It says fleshly, carnal. That's what the carnal commandment is. We're going to expound on it though. having the nature of flesh, i.e., under the control of the animal appetites. Okay. Pertaining to the flesh, B says, to the body, related to birth, lineage, etc. Keep that in mind. The carnal commandment is according to the flesh, to the body, related to birth or lineage. Let's get Numbers chapter 8, and then we'll start at verse 11.
It's the book of Numbers, chapter 8 and verse 11. And Aaron shall offer the Levites before the Most High for an offering of the children of Israel, that they may execute the service of the Most High.
So when you see offer, it's not saying that he's going to sacrifice them, or it's not human sacrifice, anything like that. That's just another way of saying, you know, they were appointed to the priesthood. All right, so they had to do that. That's what they were appointed to do. Okay, the Levites of the children of Israel, that tribe, the Levites. All right, let's keep going.
Verse 12. And the Levites shall lay their hands upon the heads of the bullocks, and thou shalt offer the one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering unto the Lord, to make an atonement for the Levites.
All right, let's keep reading through here.
Verse 13. And thou shalt set the Levites before Aaron and before his sons, and offer them for an offering unto the Most High.
Let's read for verse 14.
Thus shalt thou separate the Levites from among the children of Israel, and the Levites shall be mine.
Okay. Now, what do we read that the carnal commandment meant, or what does carnal mean? The body related to birth, lineage, etc. So when we read in Hebrews chapter 7 here, where it says that who was made not after the law but carnal commandment, is talking about the Levitical priesthood. That's a carnal commandment that, you know, Moses gave to the children of Israel, or at least, you know, this is all according to the Most High. I'm not saying that Moses did on his own accord. I'm just saying the first priesthood was a fleshly priesthood because it was based on the flesh, not on the spirit, because both of those have to be, you know, under the order of Melchizedek. You have to be of the seed line and of the righteous spirit and have faith. It's not based on just your flesh. All right. Being born an Israelite, if you don't keep the Most High statute, laws, and commandments and have faith on his son, it means nothing for you, essentially, because you're going to get the same treatment as the heathens. Matter of fact, you're considered a Gentile, you're considered a heathen. All right, so that's why Paul spent so much time in the quote unquote New Testament bringing that out, because we spent so much time, you know, all of those hundreds of years just going by the flesh, especially Levites. You know, if you're a Levite, you're a priest. But you see here in Numbers, they didn't say anything about their spirit or, you know, things of that nature. Not saying that they weren't keeping the laws, but it was just based, you know, primarily on their flesh, on their lineage. That's what the carnal commandment is. Okay. And under the order of Melchizedek, it's not going to be like that. Okay. You won't get into the kingdom by your flesh alone. All right. Because you're going to be considered a Gentile. You're going to be considered a heathen if you're going off, if you're not keeping the Most High's statutes, laws, and commandments. If you're walking around here saying the law is done away with, all right, if you're around here celebrating Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, things of that nature, you're not keeping the Sabbath, you're considered a heathen because they don't keep the Sabbath. They keep those wicked, quote unquote, holidays. You understand? You the same. Doesn't matter if you have the C line. Doesn't matter if you're a so-called black man or woman. Doesn't matter anymore. Okay. Let's get, and when I say it doesn't matter anymore, I'm not saying like literally, I'm saying if that's all you have to offer is your flesh, it doesn't matter for you. Now let's get some other examples of how we're transitioning over from not just relying on the flesh, That's the order of Aaron. All right, that's that first covenant. Now we have to have our spirit aligned as well, especially in these last days where, Esau gonna make it even harder, for us to be righteous. You gotta have your spirit in line, man. Spirit gotta be in line with the Most High. You can't be doing things for show. All right, let's get Romans chapter 4 and verse 1.
This is the book of Romans, chapter 4 and verse 1. What shall we say then that Abraham our father, as pertaining to the flesh, have found?
So we get into the flesh versus the spirit right now, and that's what the order of Aaron and the order of Melchizedek essentially is. It's transitioning over from the flesh to the spirit, because really that's the Most High is constantly showing us, it's about the spirit, man. Even if you have a seed line, you got to have your spirit in check too. All right, let's keep going.
Verse 2. For if Abraham were justified by works, he hath whereof to glory, but not before the Most High.
Let's keep going.
For what saith the scripture? Abraham believed the Most High, and it was counted unto him for righteousness.
So it was counted to Abraham for righteousness because he believed. All right, but he was of the seed line as well. When I say seed line, of the righteous seed line, okay? But it wasn't just that. That's what Paul is trying to bring out. It wasn't just because he was chosen. It was also because he believed. He genuinely believed in the Most High, and he kept the statute, laws, and commandments. And he was of that righteous seed line. That all goes in together. Okay? Let's start at verse, come in this blessing. Let's start verse 10.
Verse 10. How was it then reckoned when he was in circumcision or in uncircumcision? Not in circumcision, but in uncircumcision.
We touched on this in one of the other lessons. Paul's bringing out here when the Most High blessed Abraham, he gave him the promises. It was before, at this time, it was before he was even circumcised. So our people worried about, and being overly concerned with the physical circumcision when Paul is bringing out an example. Look at Abraham. He received a blessing and he was counted for righteousness before he was even physically circumcised. You understand? And that's something we have to think about. And that's why at one time, I believe it was a couple lessons ago, I likened being circumcised to fringes, because if you wear fringes, which you're supposed to, if you wear them, but you going off in them, I mean, what does that really do for you? What does that really do? Your heart has to be circumcised as well, meaning your spirit. Because just to be real, a lot of people in general, but brothers and sisters in this thing, they doing it for show. It always end up coming out to the light, but things on the outside, that's not enough to determine someone's righteousness or their spirit alone. Okay, so Paul's not saying don't ever get circumcised again. He's saying don't rely on that only. Okay, you got to be spiritually minded. If the first thing you think about is circumcision, and even with fringes, if that's the first thing your mind think about when it comes to righteousness, then you thinking on the flesh, you thinking on someone's outside appearance and not their spirit. You got to have both. Again, I'm not saying to not do these things. I'm just saying your spirit, because fringes is supposed to be a reminder of keeping the commandments, right? So if you're not keeping the commandments, or you doing whatever in your fringes, how does that really profit you? All right. Let's get Philippians chapter 3 and verse 3.
This is the book of Philippians, chapter 3 and verse 3. For we are the circumcision, which worship the Most High in the spirit, and rejoice in Hamashiach Yahawashi, and have no confidence in the flesh.
So under the order of Melchizedek, you have no confidence in the flesh. It's going to be about your spirit. when Yahawashi comes back. That's who he's selecting. All right, not those that, you know, uh, got the livest garments and livest fringes, and they the loudest, and they talk the most about what they do. No, it's going to be those that's actually aligned, that actually has the faith, actually believe, and keep the commandments as well. Because again, on fringes, you got to think about, like, wearing fringes does not automatically, give you spiritual powers. It's just something of the flesh. So you got to, if that's what you looking at to determine righteousness, you got to change your mindset. You legit looking at the flesh. You worry about man's outside appearance, and that's not going to get us in the kingdom. It's just not. All right, that's not spiritual in itself. Now let's get something else as well to that a lot of people kind of don't understand when it comes to the first and second covenant. Let's get Hebrews chapter 9 and verse 10.
God, this is the book of Hebrews, chapter 9 and verse 10, which stood only in the meats and drinks and diverse washings.
So let's get verse 9 first.
Verse 9, which was a figure for the time then present, in which were offered both gifts and sacrifices that could not make him that did this service perfect, as pertaining to the conscience.
So under Levitical priesthood, the priest still committed sins. So, you giving offers and sacrifices for everybody else's sins, because if you don't know how it works, that's essentially how it did. You had the priests, the Levitical priests, they gave up offerings and sacrifices for the sins of the people, because the wages of sin is death. Okay, so some got to go. If there's sin, it just equals death. It's going to bring about death every single time. But the priests were sinning as well. So, is that even a priesthood that is, that we can go by? Is that of the spirit? Because, they were going off as well. Not saying they were trying to, but, they were mortals. So let's get verse 10.
God, verse 10, which stood only in the meats and drinks and diverse washings and carnal ordinances imposed on them until the time of Reformation.
Okay, so it says here, which stood only in meats and drinks and diverse washing and carnal ordinances. We see this carnal again. Now, people will read this, especially they see meats. They like, oh, so Paul is saying we can eat whatever we want, right? No, that's not what Brother Paul is bringing out here. He's talking about the first covenant. Again, he's showing the difference between the first covenant and the second covenant. The order of Aaron under the Levitical priesthood, and then the order of Melchizedek under Yahawashi. You see, meats and drinks, this is talking about the law. I don't even think I got pulled up. Let's get all of it. Let's get Leviticus 2 real quick, 2 and 1.
God, it's the book of Leviticus, chapter 2 and verse 1. And when any will offer a meat offering unto the Lord, his offering shall be of fine flour, and he shall pour oil upon it and put frankincense therein.
So that's what he's saying. We can't keep this anymore here. We don't have any Levites, to go through and offer up fine flour and pour oil on it and put frankincense thereon. That's what he's saying. That's what he's saying is no longer in effect. Not the entire law, but you saw it says a meat offering. He wasn't talking about all meats. He wasn't saying that the dietary law was wicked. Okay, he wasn't saying that's no longer in place. He was only talking about the offerings. And that's why it says here, which was a figure for the time then present, which offered both gifts and sacrifices. Verse 10 is still about gifts and sacrifices. This is not talking about all meats, all right, and drinks. And speaking of drinks, Numbers Numbers 28. Numbers 28, yeah, in verse 7.
It's the book of Numbers, chapter 28 and verse 7. And it reads, and the drink offering thereof shall be the fourth part of a hin for the one lamb. In the holy place shalt thou cause the strong wine to be poured unto the Lord for a drink offering.
So that's another part of the law that we cannot do anymore. You see, that's what Paul is talking about. Paul is going back to the law. Okay, he got precepts for everything that he's talking about. Okay, there is no precept that says anything about no longer following the dietary law. That's including Acts chapter 10. It wasn't talking about meats. When you see the word meats, you can't go to pork immediately. You can't go to shrimp immediately and fish that you want to eat and catfish and stuff like that. Okay, that's not what it's always talking about. You know, think on a spiritual level, on a level of going back to the actual Torah to see where this is coming from. Okay. Let's get Exodus chapter 29 and verse 13.
It's the book of Exodus, chapter 29 and verse 13. 17. 17.
Yes, so 17.
17. And thou shalt cut the ram in pieces and wash the inwards of him and his legs and put them into his pieces and into his head.
You see, those are the washings. Those are the diverse washings that Paul is talking about. That was part of the first covenant. In diverse washings, that's one of the washings that he was talking about. Okay, in meats and meat offering and drink offerings and washings. That's what he's talking about. Okay, he's not talking about, you know, doing away with the law that was already in effect before the order of Aaron was, you know, it was taken away. When Yahawashi died, that was the end of the order of Aaron, meaning the Levitical priesthood. Okay, and that's what Paul was constantly trying to tell the children of Israel. All right, and that's what the order of Aaron essentially is. We're going back to the laws that were in effect before the Levitical priesthood, okay, that Melchizedek was under. That's what it is. I think I had something on carnal ordinances. Like it says there, carnal ordinances. Let's get Numbers 19 and verse 2.
God, it's the book of Numbers, chapter 19 and verse 2. This is the ordinance of the law which the Most High have commanded, saying, speak unto the children of Israel that they bring thee a red heifer without spot, wherein no blemish, and upon which never came yoke.
You see, this is a cardinal. I think I said cardinal one time. If I did, it's a lot. This is a carnal or fleshly ordinance. Okay, bringing a red heifer without spot, wearing no blemish. Okay, when the last time brothers went and got a red heifer without spot and blemish, you know, and offer that thing up, you know, sprinkle the blood before the tabernacle 7 times. Like, we don't have to do that anymore. That's what Paul is talking about. And that's what you won't have to do under the order of Melchizedek, because there won't be any sin. You understand? That's what the order of Melchizedek is. Now, since we pretty much got, I think we touched on everything in Hebrews chapter 9, verse 10. Yeah, we touched on the meat offerings, drink offerings, divers washings, carnal ordinances, imposed on them until the time of Reformation, until Yahawashi came back. And imposed just means more on the side of that's what they were under, not like bondage or anything of that nature, which they try to act like what's going on in so-called church. Okay, that's what the order of Melchizedek is. Now, I want to talk about, one thing that is one of the biggest misconceptions about the scriptures is that the law began with Moses. And that couldn't be any further away from the truth. And we have to understand that difference, like I talked about earlier, between the first covenant and the law. Because the law was around before that first covenant. Before Moses went on Mount Sinai and gave the children of Israel the 10 commandments, the law was already in effect. Now we got this first covenant here. It says people affirm the covenant with God. Why is it who people? No, the children of Israel. Tell it like it is. All right, let's we're gonna go straight to it. Let's do let's get verse 7, Exodus chapter 24, verse 7, Bob Kashah.
Okay, this is the book of Exodus, chapter 24 and verse 7. And he took the book of the covenant and read it in the audience of the people. And they said, all that the Lord have said, we will do and be obedient.
Okay, keep going.
And Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people and said, behold, the blood of the covenant, which is the Lord, which the Lord have made with you concerning all these words.
Okay, this was when Moses gave the children of Israel the 10 commandments and the rest of the commandments. That was the first covenant. Okay, but the law did not begin here. Let's get Matthew chapter 19 and verse 8.
It's the book of Matthew chapter 19 and verse 8. And it reads, he saith unto them, Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, suffer you to put away your wives. But from the beginning, it was not so.
Wait, so if the law began with Moses, why is Yahawashi saying, but from the beginning, it was not so when it came to divorce? What beginning is there if the law started with Moses? All right. And it says, because the hardness of your hearts. We're going to get more on that too. I think, we don't understand, but when we were in bondage in Egypt, we were in idolatry and all types of wickedness, man. So that's why you had the first covenant come into effect in the first place. Let's get Exodus chapter 20 and verse 8.
The book of Exodus chapter 20 and verse 8. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy.
Remember the Sabbath day. Remember the Sabbath day. Why does it say remember? At least one of the reasons, because we already had the instructions of the Sabbath prior to Moses giving it to us. So the Most High is saying, remember the Sabbath day, because this was not his first time giving this law to the children of Israel. All right. And we weren't keeping it. We were slaves in Egypt. You think the Egyptians gonna let you keep the Sabbath? All right, as a slave? Well, I'm gonna just take today off so I can keep the Sabbath. No, you're not. You better get back out here. That we don't keep the Sabbath over here in Egypt. What y'all was doing over there, but we don't do that here. That's what happens when you're in captivity. All right, that's essentially what's happening to us now. That's why we have to go out our way. Sometimes brothers got to deal with the jobs, not letting them off on the Sabbath. Sometimes got to work on the Sabbath because we're in a strange land. All right, in captivity, and that's what happens. So I thought I had, let's get this first. Let's get Exodus chapter 16 and verse 23.
It's the book of Exodus chapter 16 and verse 23. And he said unto them, this is that which the Lord hath said. Tomorrow is the rest of the holy Sabbath unto the Lord. Bake that which ye will bake today, and seeth that ye will seeth.
See?
Salakia, seeth.
Come.
Seeth. And that which remaineth over lay up for you to be kept until the morning.
Okay, so This is the Most High instructing the children of Israel about the Holy Sabbath. But this is before the 10 Commandments and the rest of the commandments. And I keep saying the 10 Commandments just so we can get our mindset of what was going on there. But before the Most High gave the children of Israel the commandments in Mount Sinai, this was before then. You know, they took their journey from Elam all the way to congregation, and the children of Israel came into the wilderness of sin between Elam and Sinai. So this was before they even got there. The 10 Commandments is listed in Exodus, the 20th chapter. Okay. They already knew about the Sabbath beforehand. Okay. And this wasn't even the first time, but this is just clear that, you know, we had the statute, laws, and commandments before. So that's what we're going back to essentially under the order of Melchizedek. All right, and the Sabbath came before, you know, way before even that. Let's get Genesis chapter 2 and verse 1.
It's the book of Genesis, chapter 2 and verse 1. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them.
Keep going.
And on the seventh day, the Most High ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made.
Not because he got tired, because he rested. Let's keep going.
And the Most High blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which the Most High created and made.
So the Sabbath has been around since the first period of creation, on the first week of creation. All right. So it didn't start with Moses. It didn't start under the first covenant. Now, a lot of us understand that, but trust me, there's a lot of us that do not understand that. Okay, because if you did understand this, you would not say that the law was done away with. You would just understand it was the first covenant. Yes, the first covenant had the laws that were in effect before, but it also had those laws that were added because of transgression. Okay, now let's get further proof. We talked about this verse last time, but let's get further proof that the law was already around before the first covenant. Let's get Genesis chapter 7 and verse 1 through 2.
It's the book of Genesis chapter 7 and verse 1. And the Lord said unto Noah, come thou and all thy house into the ark, for thee have I seen righteous before me in this generation. Of every clean beast thou shalt take, of every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by sevens, the male and his female, and of the beasts that are not clean by two, the male and his female.
So how Noah know about clean beasts? And you see the explanation is not even here. So he already knew about it. He knew what a clean and unclean beast was. Okay. So if you thinking that now you can eat shrimp, now you can eat, you know, lobster, po' boys, and all this other nonsense, you can't. Okay. If you under the order of Melchizedek, if you under Yahawashi, that is, you under Christ, then, you know, then you can't. But if you're not, then, you know, be my guest, do what you do. But if you're trying to follow the Most High, you're trying to make it a kingdom, man. All the laws that you see that were already in effect, you better keep them. Abraham did. Let's get Genesis chapter 26 and verse 5.
It's the book of Genesis chapter 26 and verse 5. Because that Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws.
So, you know, how could he keep these laws if they weren't in effect until Moses? You know, that wouldn't make any sense. So he was keeping the Sabbath and the dietary laws, honor his parents, so on and so forth as well. You know about Noah? You know, he was perfect in his generations. You even had Enoch, the righteous Enoch, in the chapter before, chapter 5. You know, he walked with the Most High as well. Let's get Psalms chapter 119, verse 160.
The book of Psalms, chapter 119 and verse 160. Thy word is true from the beginning, and every one of thy righteous judgments endureth forever.
That's how the law endures forever. That's how we know it's not done away with. And that's essentially, again, what the order of Melchizedek is. Okay. It's that Levitical priesthood that was added that's getting peeled away. Now we have the laws in the form that they were in before the order of Aaron. Let's get Galatians chapter 3 and verse 18 through 19.
Galatians chapter 3 and verse 18. For if the inheritance be of the law, it is no more of promise, but the Most High gave it to Abraham by promise. Wherefore then serveth the law? It was added because of transgressions, till the seed should come to whom the promise was made, and it was ordained by angels in the hand of a mediator.
Where then serveth the law? So why did you even have the Levitical priesthood? Okay, what did it serve? Now you see, this can't be based on what we saw. The Most High had the laws in effect from the very beginning. Okay, always, actually, everlasting. So why would Paul be saying, you know, wherefore serveth the law that was around from the very beginning? Okay, and why would that law be added because of transgressions if it was already around? It's not talking about the entire volume of the law. Okay, it's talking about the Levitical priesthood that was added because of transgressions until the seed should come to whom the promise was made. The seed, the promise was made to Abraham's seed through Isaac, and then through Isaac's son, Jacob or Israel. Okay? And you know, when you understand this, you know that Paul was only talking about the children of Israel as well. But that's what he's saying. You know, the law was added because of transgressions. That's what's been taken away. The Levitical priesthood that was added on top for our people's transgressions in Egypt. Okay, there was a reason why the Most High did not save us out that place immediately. Let's get Leviticus chapter 16 and verse 16.
It's the book of Leviticus chapter 16 and verse 16. And he shall make an atonement for the holy place because of the uncleanness of the children of Israel, and because of their transgressions in all their sins. And so shall he do for the tabernacle of the congregation that remaineth among them in the midst of their uncleanness.
See, that Levitical priesthood was added because of their transgressions and all of their sins. Okay. You have to understand Israelite history, because you read an Israelite history book when you read the Bible from front all the way to the back to the end, the quote unquote Old Testament and the quote unquote New Testament. Even when you read about Adam all the way until Jacob was born, there's a reason why they highlighted the righteous seed line that got us all the way up until the children of Israel. All right, they highlighted Adam. They even talked about, you know, Enoch, Seth, talked about Abraham, Noah, Shem. All of these men were part of that righteous seed line. So if it wasn't about the children of Israel, why we hear more about, you know, the wicked Enoch? Why we hear more about the Hamites and what they did, the Japhites and what they had going on? The Bible doesn't go into it. Okay, it's about one people. This Bible is. Let's get Leviticus chapter 17, and then let's get verse 7.
It's the book of Leviticus chapter 17 and verse 7. And they shall no more offer their sacrifices unto devils, after whom they have gone a whoring. This shall be a statute forever unto them throughout their generations.
These are the sins that we were doing. that we had to atone for with the animal sacrifices. Okay, this is why Levitical priesthood was added. Our people were worshiping the same gods that the Egyptians were worshiping. We were taking on the same customs as the Egyptians. Okay, let's get Ezekiel chapter 20 and verse 7.
The book of Ezekiel, chapter 20 and verse 7. Then said I unto them, cast ye away every man the abominations of his eye, and defile not yourselves with the idols of Egypt. I am the Lord your power.
So we were defiling ourselves with the idols of Egypt. That's why the Most High said this. Okay, and that's the understanding behind Galatians, the 3rd chapter, right here, verse 19, where it says the law was added because of transgressions. It's not talking about the law from the beginning. It's not talking about the Sabbath or any of the laws in the 10 commandments. You're not good on idolatry now. You're not good on stealing now. You're not good on any of this, coveting, adultery. You're not good on none of that. Okay, because this is not the law that Paul was talking about. This is not the schoolmaster he was talking about. Okay, that wouldn't make any sense. And it doesn't have any precepts to go along with that. Now, I pull this up in some other translations, the same verse that we had just read, Ezekiel chapter 20, verse 7. And you can see here, like a New Living Translation, each of you get rid of the vile images you were. So get rid of the vile images you are so obsessed with. Do not defile yourselves with the idols of Egypt. Because that's what we were into, man. We were going off there in Egypt. All right, there was a reason that we were in bondage. Anytime we're in bondage, it's because we're not keeping the Most High statute, laws, and commandments. So that goes into today. Okay. Now, to finish up talking about what the order of Melchizedek is, we touched on it earlier. It's a spiritual priesthood. Okay, you got to go by the Spirit. Let's get Romans chapter 8 and verse 1.
The book of Romans, chapter 8 and verse 1. There is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in Hamashiach Yahawashi, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit.
So if you're still trying to perform animal sacrifices, you walking by the flesh. That's a carnal ordinance, and that's the carnal commandment. That's not the order of Melchizedek. Paul is trying to get everybody under the order of Melchizedek. Okay, and that's what the order of Melchizedek is. It's walking after the Spirit. Okay, let's get verse 2 and then verse 3 as well.
Verse 2. For the law of the Spirit of the life in Hamashiach Yahawashi have made me free from the law of sin and death.
The law of sin and death is that order of Aaron. It's not talking about the entire law that had people, they try to act like the law just had people messed up. It's talking about that first law, and also, the first priesthood, the first covenant. It's also talking about our reliance on the flesh. Again, when you were born a Levite, then you were automatically a priest. It was based on your flesh alone, essentially. But now, you're not supposed to be walking in only the flesh. All right, you can't have an over-reliance in you being an Israelite now. Okay, because the elect, they're going to be all the way girded. The elect, meaning those will be saved into the Most High's kingdom. You're going to have more than just your flesh, man. That's not enough anymore. You got to walk after the Spirit. And what does that even mean? You have to build your spirit up by reading, digesting the word, praying, fasting, and being genuine. When nobody else is around to see what you're doing, is your goal really to chase the Most High with all his heart, all your heart, and on all your spirit and your soul? Is that really your intention? Or Are you doing it because everybody else is doing it? That's walking after the flesh. All right. Are you doing it because it's a fad? Are you doing it because you think that's what you're supposed to be doing, but you don't really believe? You really don't have faith for real. That's all walking after the flesh. If you're walking after spirit, those are the things that you won't do. Okay, let's get verse 3.
Verse 3. For what the law could not do, and that it was weak through the flesh, the Most High sending his own Son in the likeness of sinful flesh, and for sin, condemned sin in the flesh.
Okay, so it was weak because the Levites were sinners as well. They gave a sacrifice for sinners, but they were sinners in themselves. That made that first covenant weak through the flesh. Okay, let's get verse 4.
Verse 4. That the righteousness of the law might be fulfilled in us, who walk not after the flesh, but after the spirit.
Kill the flesh, quicken the spirit. That's what the order of Melchizedek is all about. That's what it is. Okay, and when you see that in Hebrews chapter 7, that's what he's talking about. When I say he, I'm talking about Paul. Let's get Romans chapter 9 and verse 31 through 30. Just get 32, 31, 32.
This is the book of Romans chapter 9 and verse 31. But Israel, which followed after the law of righteousness, have not attained to the law of righteousness.
See? Israel, which followed after the law of righteousness, have not attained to the law of righteousness. Let's keep going.
Verse 32. Wherefore, because they sought it not by faith, but as it were by the works of the law, for they stumble at the stumbling stone.
So this is deep right here. It says, Paul said, because they sought it not by faith. Again, everybody that say they're a repentant Israelite doesn't mean that they're truly walking by faith. Okay, you can easily not be in this thing by walking by faith and in the spirit. Okay, you know, if your flesh is still winning constantly over your spirit, then you know you need to check that, because maybe you're still under the first covenant, you're still under the flesh. All right, and maybe you still have pride in being an Israelite alone, and those types of spirits that you have on you will keep you from truly being spiritual according to the Most High. When you prideful about being an Israelite in itself, you won't focus on what you need to do to be spiritual. All right. And if you read the word just to impress the man, you also of the flesh. If you're trying to get precepts just so you can look like you know the most, you're not being genuine. If you're not being genuine, you're not being of the spirit. All right. But that's what Paul is talking about. All right. We were boasting in being Israel alone because we read, Deuteronomy chapter 7. We knew who we were, but we thought that was enough. That's why we started going off. There's a reason that we were in sin constantly, because we were battling, these things all the time. And now let's get Hebrews chapter 10 and then verse 19.
God, it's the book of Hebrews chapter 10 and verse 19. Having therefore, brethren, boldness to enter into the holiness by the blood of Hamashiach.
Keep going.
By a new and living way, which he have consecrated for us through the veil, that is to say, his flesh. This
new and living way is walking in the spirit. That's what the order of Melchizedek is. Okay, it's not. I don't know what these. I don't even know what do these so-called Christian parishes say that the order of Melchizedek is, or do they just go completely around it? Y'all know what they even say about it?
I hadn't heard them address it.
Yeah, I haven't either. I normally look stuff up like that just to see what they be saying. But whatever it is, they lying. I know they lying. All right. Let's keep going. Verse 21.
Verse 21. And having an high priest over the house of the Most High.
Verse 22.
Let us draw near with a true heart in full assurance of faith, having our hearts sprinkled from an evil conscience and our bodies washed with pure water.
And you see that? Having a true heart, a full assurance of faith. Again, everything that you see people say, it doesn't mean that they actually believe it. A lot of people out here are just talking. Okay, when it comes down to actually reading, to actually doing the work, they slack. But amongst men, we talking like we doing the work, but we're not really putting in the work for real. We're not working on our discipline. That's not having a true heart, a full assurance of faith. All right, because if you really believe in this word and you know that Yahawashi coming back, then you're gonna take this serious. Okay. And when I say take it serious, not by zeal per se, but by your actions, not just by zeal. Zeal is one thing, but truly believing is a whole different thing. And have your bodies washed with pure water. That's the word. Okay. This is not talking about being baptized in your dirty church water so you come up as a wet sinner. Okay. So that's what the order of Melchizedek is. And that's essentially what Paul started going into in the rest of this chapter. We could read it, but and that's essentially what he was saying. For there's very disanuling of the commandment, going for the weakness unprofitable thereof. We got that. For law made nothing perfect. The law made nothing perfect is not talking about, the laws that Abraham and Noah kept. Okay. It's talking about the Levitical priesthood, the diverse washings, the carnal ordinances. Okay. The meat offerings, the drink offerings. You have to get the law to read that. You got to go back in the first 5 books to get those accounts. Okay. So that's pretty much it for Hebrews chapter 7. Again, we could have read this, but it was more going into what we've already established. So with that, shalom.